Hello everyone, this is Sam McEwen, and today I'm going to be talking about the way pawns move and the way they capture. Now the first thing you need to know about pawns is that they can only move in one direction. And so white's pawns can only move up, and then black's pawns can only move from this vantage point down. So like that. Next, what you need to know about pawns is that for their very first move, and only for their very first move, they can choose to advance 1 or 2 squares. And so as you can see, this pawn right here on e2 can either move 1 square to e3 or 2 squares to e4. We'll say it chooses to move to e4. And then we'll say that black wants to move its b pawn, and this b pawn can move either to the b6 square or the b5 square, but we'll just say that it wants to move to the b6 square. Now after the first move that a pawn makes, it can't move 2 anymore. It can only move 1 square per turn. And so this pawn can only move to the e5 square now. It can't move up to the e6 square, only the e5. And this pawn, on b6, even though it only moved 1 square the first turn, can't move 2 squares. It can only move 1 square. It's white's turn, so maybe it wants to move its d pawn only 1, and then maybe black wants to move its 2 if it wants to. The way I like to remember it is that for white, the booster is on the second, and so if the pawn wants to use his booster, he can just boost right up to 2 squares. But maybe it doesn't want to use its booster, so it only moves 1. But once it's off its booster, it can't boost 2 anymore. Now we get to a little bit more of a tricky part. And so we'll say it's white's turn, moves there, then black's turn will move there. And then white again wants to move up to f4. So now this is where we get to how pawns capture. Pawns can only capture diagonally 1 square forward to the left or to the right. And so this pawn, I like to say, has its lasers here on the g5 and the e5 square. And so where this pawn has its laser means it can capture on those 2 squares. And so there's not a piece right here, so it can't capture that way. But there is a piece right here on e5. And so white's pawn here, for its turn, can choose to capture on this e5 square. Same with black. It's black's turn, so he has his pawn on e5, and if he wants to, he can come down here and capture this f4 pawn. Since there's not a pawn here on d4, it can't capture that. We also see that this pawn can't move forward because pawns can't capture forward. And so if black wants to, he can come down here and capture this pawn. Another thing that we want to learn is that once this pawn is captured, this isn't checkers. In checkers, what you do is you take your piece and you jump over the other piece, like this. That's not how we do it in chess. In chess, what we do is we tackle them. And once we tackle them, they're off the board. And so here you see my piece moving diagonally, and I capture the black pawn. Now you can see that no pieces for this turn can capture the other piece because no one is diagonal from each other. But once I move this black pawn 2 squares, it's white's turn, and as you can see, I can capture diagonally here. If I want to, I can move up, but if I do this, now I get this pawn on f5 for free. That's all we have for pawns today. Thanks for watching.